Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to review probably one of the most suspenseful and intense movies that I have personally ever seen. So, without further ado, we have Prisoners. Now this one is two great leads. We got Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. So in this movie, to give you guys a brief premise, is Hugh Jackman's character Keller and Terrence Howard's character Franklin. Terrence and Howard, their families meet up for dinner. I believe it's on Thanksgiving, and they meet up, and their two daughters want to go play outside. They end up missing, and so this movie that propels pretty much the general plot is them doing whatever they can to try to figure out where their daughters are. It's testing their limits, seeing what lengths they'll go to try to find them. And then Jake Gyllenhaal, he plays Detective Loki. He's the one leading this case, trying to look for them. So Hugh Jackman gets more screen time than Terrence Howard, but their characters play pretty much the same roles. So you essentially have two sides of it. We have Detective Loki looking for them, the two fathers looking for their daughters, and then we have one of the suspects. He gets screen time as well. And so let's sort of dive into this. This one, the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, is probably one of the most unsettling ways it could have been done. It just sort of, the effects just sit with you for a while. And I was impressed with how they were able to pull that off, because this movie doesn't rely on anything thematic, or there's no CGI, there's no big explosions or anything. And for sort of grounded movie, I would say something real, something that happens, something that unfortunately for some people it would be relatable. This movie relies on the cast's acting, which not only did they do a phenomenal job, but it relies on the pacing and the quality of the storytelling as well, especially if it's 2.5 hours long. So the movie didn't feel long, but it definitely didn't feel like a short movie. So I know if you're anything like me, I'm getting kind of tired of these 3.5 hour long movies. But this one, I feel like it was worth it, only because the runtime and the time you get to having to be invested with these characters, there is a payoff, and it is satisfying. And so that, I think, makes it worth it. If you're gonna have something so long, you can't just have some boring, generic ending. Wait around for the sequel for 5 to 10 years. That doesn't fly. It doesn't work. But this movie is not the case. So this movie was really, really well done. And so, like I said, the plot is their daughters are taken, and toward the opening, we get this happens towards basically the beginning, and the kids were seen messing around with this sort of camper by Paul Dano's character, Alex. And so one of the daughters, her older brother, saw this camper, knew there was someone inside. By the time the daughters go missing, that guy in the camper is gone. So he is now the prime suspect in the search for these two little girls. And so Detective Loki, he finds the camper, there's backup, they find him, they arrest him, and then you find out they discover he has the IQ of a 10-year-old, and they didn't find any evidence of anything that would basically make him a suspect further. So they don't find anything on the camper he was with, anything on his person. They have to let him go because there's nothing. And so, of course, you feel like there's some shady stuff going on and he's probably involved somehow, but the police can't prove it. And so this is where I would say half the movie gets its intensity from, is from Hugh Jackman's character, Keller. Keller takes matters into his own hands to kidnap Alex. Now, Alex had also said something when released at the police station. When Keller shows up, there's a big, there's news crews, there's a lot of people there wondering what's going on, and he says something to Keller that alludes to the fact that he knows where they are, but he still has the IQ of a 10-year-old, so you don't really know what's going on yet, so the audience is kept guessing at what's really going on. So that was enough for Keller to take matters into his own hands and kidnap him. And when he does, this is where the brutality of this movie takes place, is with Keller trying to get the information out of Alex. He's beating the absolute crap out of him, and he's trying and trying and trying to get him to say where his daughter is. And so Terrence Howard's character Franklin ends up getting dragged into the plot of getting the information out of him, and he sort of has this human response. He wants to find his daughter, but he's freaked out at the fact that Alex is now kidnapped, and that they have to beat the information out of him. He's sort of the voice of reason, even though he is giving in to helping Keller with this. He's you as an audience, we figure that he'll probably be the one to tell someone else about it. So he's just not really having it. He's cooperating with Keller, but he doesn't like it one bit, because he knows that's not the way to go about it. But Keller doesn't care. He is going to do whatever it takes to find his daughter. And so Viola Davis, she plays Franklin's wife in the movie, and she has minimal screen time compared to the rest of the cast. But what screen time she does have, I thought she did really well with it. Franklin ends up telling her about it because he just can't keep it in anymore, and she wants to go see him. She wants to go find Alex herself. So, and now Keller, Franklin, and his wife, the three of these characters go to meet with Alex where he is kidnapped. And as her character approaches him, he has this bag over his head. And, we don't really know why. We assume maybe he can't scream or whatever. She takes it off, and that's the dramatic effect for the audience, is you just see his eye so swollen. He can't even open his eye. He's just bleeding all over. He looks like crap. He looks like he's been killed. And so that's the brutality of this movie, is the lengths these characters are going to. And of course, Alex he's not budging. He's not saying anything. He doesn't really know what's going on. Keller assumes he's lying, but that's the tension in this movie, is not knowing whether or not Alex really is responsible. And so that's most of Keller's story for this movie. I would say that's at least 2/3 of his story is torturing Alex. So going back to Detective Loki, obviously he has to let Alex go, and he's getting bits and pieces of weird stuff going on around town, but it takes him a while to find something that actually connects to these two little girls' location. And so eventually he finds one of the suspects that there was a big tribute where people were putting candles down for little girls. This guy was acting shady and takes off. Detective Loki goes after him. And later on in the movie, he does catch up to him later and finds these bins of snakes and these bins of children's clothing. And so the parents of others, and with Franklin and Keller, they have to go identify the clothing, these blood-soaked clothing, and identify if it's their daughters or not. And, well, they are. So at this point in the movie, you don't know whether or not it's going to have a happy ending, but you assume now that these little girls are dead. So it's a very dark movie. This movie is rated R. There's no, sexual content in here. There's not a lot of those suggestive comments. It's just swearing and the brutality of the story and the dialogue and the actions of the characters themselves. This is probably one of the most R rating earned movies that doesn't have any sexual content. So I was surprised by how much the brutality lasted in this movie, but nevertheless, I still thought it was a great movie. And so back to what I was saying with them identifying these clothings, we assume the little girls are dead, and we find out that Detective Loki he's slowly spiraling. He's trying to save these little girls. He doesn't know what's going on, and his suspect ends up killing himself in the interrogation room. And so that's obviously a pun intended dead end. They're just not going to get any more information out of him. And so his leads are, his trails have gone cold. And so Keller's still convinced Alex is responsible. And as it turns out, the suspect had gone into the homes of the victims to steal clothing and get blood on them. So it turns out these weren't the clothing that was on them when they were kidnapped. So now we have hope that the characters are in fact still alive, and the director keeps giving these surprises at the audience, like the children are dead, and then the surprise, oh, they're really not. And we get a glimpse at the two little girls alive, and we see that Franklin's daughter actually makes it out. She's taken to the hospital, of course. Keller wants to, ask her questions. The doctors and her family doesn't want him to do that at the moment. So he goes off on his own. And he's absolutely desperate at this point because his wife is spiraling, not knowing how to deal with her daughter being taken. Franklin's family is now okay because they have, their daughter back. Detective Loki is very suspicious of Keller because, well, he's acting suspicious because he's kidnapped someone. So Keller takes off to go to Alex, and he's trapped him inside this small box in the shower in this abandoned building, and he turns the heater on to burn him, and that's his interpretation of torture for this guy. And so even though they don't show him burning, because it's dark in there and the camera doesn't show him burning, it's the implied actions of what's going on that's just very unsettling. And so at this point, we finally get our reveal that Keller is now suspicious that Alex's mom is responsible. And with the plot twist that it is, turns out it was Alex's mom. And so on this final confrontation, Keller ends up kidnapped, but Detective Loki ends up figuring out what's going on. He ends up shooting her, Alex's mom, and he takes Keller's daughter. He rushes her to the hospital. He's also been shot, so he's injured. And this whole unsettling part of the story is we see like a few days later, Keller's been kidnapped. We don't even know what's going on with him, but his daughter's alive and safe and in the hospital. And at this point, Detective Loki has found Alex. They know that the police know Keller kidnapped him, so Keller will be going to jail if they find him. So he's not really going to have a life with his family again, but he just wanted his daughter to be safe. And so as we approach the final shot of this movie, there's this whistle down below where Keller is captive, and he's blowing this whistle to try to hope that anyone nearby can hear it, and Detective Loki does. So as he's hearing this whistle, he turns around and stares right at where Keller is. That's where the movie ends. And so it's definitely a cliffhanger. It's presumed Detective Loki would have found him. He was going to be arrested and probably sent to prison. But we do get the lighthearted ending that his daughter is safe at least. And so it sort of sits with you because he still, as far as the movie's concerned, with the way it ended, he doesn't know his daughter's safe. So you feel bad for him, but you also don't feel bad for him because he was torturing the guy that ended up being innocent after all. So it was a very intense movie. It was a wild ride. There's a lot of plot twists. The acting was insane. The acting was just phenomenal. It was nicely paced. It was a great story. It was an engaging story. Kept your interest the whole time. I loved everything about it. And funny enough, this director is the guy that ended up going on to direct our last two Dune movies. So that was pretty cool to see some of essentially his earlier work, or before blockbusters such as Dune. So this was a great movie. I like it. I have the Blu-ray copy. I don't know if there's a 4K for it, but there's really, without any big explosions or CGI, there's nothing that warrants the need for 4K. So I think this copy is just fine. I'm keeping it. If they make a 4K, I'm probably good. Just holding on to this one. So I like the movie a lot. I definitely recommend it if you like thrillers, if you like mystery movies, because that's what this was. It was a mystery movie. Finding them, that was the whole aspect of it, is the mystery side of it. So I like this movie a lot. If you end up watching it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys for sticking with me for this review, and I'll see you everyone next time.